Millionaire catches twins eating grass in his backyard. The truth makes him cry. The moon hung low over the sprawling estate of Harold Grayson, casting silver light across his manicured lawn. From his study window, the 62-year-old millionaire sipped his evening whiskey, gazing at the world he'd built. Acres of perfection, a testament to decades of ruthless ambition. Harold had climbed from nothing, a scrappy kid in a Rust Belt town, to a titan of industry. His wealth was his armor, his solitude his choice. But tonight something disrupted the stillness. A rustle in the shadows. Two small figures crouched near his prized rose garden, their hands tugging at the grass, stuffing it into their mouths. Harold's grip tightened on his glass. Kids. Trespassers. He stormed outside, ready to unleash his fury, but what he found stopped him cold. Twin girls. No older than 10. Their faces smudged with dirt, eyes wide with fear. "Who are you, and why the hell are you eating my lawn?" Harold's voice boomed, but the girls froze, clutching each other. Their clothes were threadbare, sneakers held together with duct tape. The taller twin, her braid unraveling, stammered, "We're sorry, sir. We didn't mean to steal. We were just hungry." Hungry? Harold's mind reeled. This was Meadowview, a gated enclave of wealth. Hunger didn't belong here. He softened his tone, kneeling to their level. "Where are your parents? Why are you out here alone?" The smaller twin, her voice barely a whisper, said, "Mama's sick. We don't got no food at home." Harold's chest tightened. He'd seen poverty before, hell, he'd lived it. But this was different. These girls weren't just hungry. They were desperate enough to eat grass. He led them inside, their hesitant steps echoing in his cavernous kitchen. Harold wasn't a warm man. His colleagues called him the bulldozer for his unyielding nature. Yet, as he warmed leftover soup and sliced bread for the twins, something stirred in him. A memory of his own childhood, scavenging for scraps when his father's factory job dried up. The girls devoured the food, their eyes darting as if expecting it to vanish. Between bites, they told him their names, Lila and Sophie, and their story. Their mother, Maria, was a single parent, a nurse who'd worked double shifts until cancer stole her strength. They lived in a crumbling apartment just beyond Meadowview's gates, where the rent was overdue and the pantry was bare. "We didn't want to bother Mama," Lila said, wiping her mouth. "She cries when we ask for food." Harold listened, his throat tight. He'd spent decades building walls, literal and figurative, to keep the world at bay. Charity galas, donations, all of it was perfunctory, a way to polish his image. But this wasn't a gala. These were two girls, real and raw, their hunger a mirror to his own forgotten past. He sent them home with a bag of groceries, promising to check on them tomorrow. As their small figures disappeared into the night, Harold sat in his silent mansion, the weight of their words pressing against his ribs. He didn't sleep. The next morning, Harold drove to their address, a sagging building with peeling paint and a broken staircase. Maria, pale and frail, opened the door, her eyes wary but kind. "I'm sorry about the girls," she said, her voice trembling. "They're good kids, they worry about me." Harold waved off her apology, his gaze sweeping the sparse apartment. A single couch, a cracked table, no trace of luxury. He asked about her illness, her bills, her life. Maria spoke softly, recounting how she'd lost her job, how medical debt had swallowed their savings, how she hid her pain so her daughters wouldn't lose hope. "They're my everything," she said, tears spilling. "I just want them to have a chance." Harold returned home, his mind a storm. He'd always believed success was about winning, about rising above others. But Maria's selflessness, the twins' quiet courage, it unraveled him. He saw himself at their age, hungry and scared, yet no one had come to his rescue. That boy had clawed his way to millions, but at what cost? His wealth hadn't bought happiness, only isolation. The realization hit like a freight train. He could change their lives, not with a check or a photo op, but with something real. He started small, paying off Maria's medical bills anonymously through a local charity. He hired a lawyer to secure her apartment, ensuring the landlord couldn't evict them. But it wasn't enough. Harold couldn't shake the image of Lila and Sophie eating grass, their small hands tearing at his lawn. He visited again, this time with a plan. "Maria," he said, sitting at her worn table, "I want to set up a trust for the girls, for their education, their future. And I want you to focus on getting better. Maria protested, pride flaring, but Harold pressed on. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for me. Because I can't live with myself if I don't. The emotional climax came weeks later, at a quiet dinner Harold hosted for the family. Maria, regaining strength from treatment, sat across from him, her daughters giggling over plates of spaghetti. Harold had never felt so nervous. He cleared his throat, producing a folder. "This is for you," he said, sliding it to Maria. Inside were documents for a fully funded college trust for Lila and Sophie, and a deed, a modest house in a safe neighborhood, theirs free and clear. Maria's hands shook as she read, tears streaming. "Why?" she whispered. Harold's voice cracked. "Because you reminded me what it means to be human. I forgot that once." Lila and Sophie leaped from their chairs, throwing their arms around Harold. He stiffened, unused to touch, then melted into their embrace, his own eyes wet. For the first time in decades, he felt connected, not to wealth or power, but to something deeper. The twins' laughter, Maria's grateful sobs, filled the empty spaces in his heart. He wasn't just giving them a house or money. He was giving them hope. And in doing so, he'd found his own. Months later, Harold's mansion felt less like a fortress. He started a foundation not for headlines but to quietly help families like Maria's. He visited the twins often, their new home filled with books and warmth. Lila wanted to be a doctor, Sophie a teacher. They no longer ate grass. They dreamed big. Harold, once the bulldozer, became their Uncle Harry, a title worth more than his millions. The story of Harold and the twins spread quietly in Meadowview, a whisper of kindness in a world often cold. It wasn't about the money he gave, but the heart he rediscovered. For every American chasing success, for every soul feeling alone, their story was a reminder. True wealth lies in what you give, not what you keep. Harold learned it from two girls in his backyard, and in their eyes, he saw the best of humanity, resilient, selfless, and full of hope. As Harold stood on his lawn one evening, watching the sunset, he smiled. The grass was just grass now, not a symbol of desperation. He'd built an empire, but this small, messy, beautiful connection was his legacy. And it was enough.